When most people imagine the Wild West, they imagine noise, gunfire, raised voices, horses moving fast across dusty ground. They imagine danger around every corner. But for the people who actually lived there, the West was mostly quiet, not empty, not lonely in a harsh way, just quiet. Most cowboys were not hired to fight. They were hired to care for animals, to move slowly across wide land, to watch, to notice, to repeat the same simple tasks day after day without needing excitement to justify the work. Violence was bad for business. A frightened herd could scatter for miles. Months of labor could disappear in a single night. So calm mattered more than bravado. Patience mattered more than speed. Steady hands mattered more than loud ones. The era we think of as the Wild West was also much shorter than most people realize. Only a few decades. From the end of the Civil War to the closing years of the 19th century. For a brief time, open range still existed. No fences stretching forever. Just land, sky, and distance. Herds moved slowly across plains that seemed to have no end. Days blended into one another. And it was those ordinary days, not the rare moments of excitement, that shaped the lives of the people who lived them. Most days passed without drama, without raised voices, without anything that would later make headlines. They were filled with watching, waiting, listening. And that is the West we are spending time in now. The day usually began before sunrise. The air was cool then, soft, still carrying the quiet of night. Before camp fully stirred, there were already small movements. A bedroll loosened, boots finding the ground. A quiet stretch of tired muscles. A hat was pulled low as pale light spread across the prairie, turning grass silver and gold. Morning routines mattered, not because they were impressive, but because they brought order. They created a sense of steadiness before long hours ahead. A horse was checked first, always a horse. Hooves were examined carefully. A hand rested on a warm neck, a familiar presence, a partner more than a tool. A saddle was tightened slowly, the same way every time, not rushed, not careless. These repeated motions became familiar over time. So familiar, they barely required thought. They were grounding, almost meditative. A rope was coiled just right, a blanket smoothed, stirrups adjusted until everything felt settled and even. A wide-brimmed hat created a small circle of shade. It moved gently with every shift in the saddle. That little patch of shadow made long rides more bearable. It softened the sun and reminded the rider that small comforts mattered. Horses needed water early. So did people. Cinch loosened, reins draped. Quiet minutes passed at streams and troughs. There was no rush, just the sound of drinking, leather creaking softly, the occasional snort of a horse. Much of the morning was spent guiding cattle forward, not pushing them, not forcing them, just moving with them. Good cowboys understood that calm hands kept calm animals, that shouting invited trouble, that fear spread faster than anything else. Patience prevented disaster. It saved time. It saved money. It saved lives. The herd moved at a walking pace, slow enough to listen, slow enough to notice the land changing. Hoofbeats fell into rhythm, a steady sound, repetitive, almost soothing. Tack jingled softly. The sound became background, something barely noticed after hours in the saddle. Time stretched. There was space to think, and just as much space to let thoughts drift away. As the day unfolded, attention shifted outward. Cowboys learned to read the land because they had to. Clouds told stories. Wind carried warnings. Animals spoke through behavior. A sudden stillness, a nervous shuffle, a ripple through the herd. Weather was always visible on the plains. Storms rarely arrived unannounced. Dark smudges appeared on the horizon. Lightning flashed far away. Silent, distant. Sometimes work paused just long enough to watch clouds roll in slowly, or to notice the smell of rain hitting dry ground. That scent was sharp and clean. It cut through dust and heat. It meant cooler air, settled ground. River crossings were often quiet affairs. Shallow streams, slow-moving water. Cattle stepped carefully. Horses lowered their heads to drink. These moments offered rest, a chance to stretch, a chance to breathe. Frequent stops were made to water the herd. During these pauses, life slowed again. A cinch loosened, a hat tipped back, a long look across open land. After riding the same route season after season, certain landmarks became familiar. An old tree, a bend in a creek, a cluster of rocks. They felt almost like companions. Silent, unchanging, fence rides followed a similar rhythm. Long stretches of quiet, wind moving grass, leather shifting with the horse, occasional repairs. Nothing urgent, nothing loud. By midday, heat settled in. On the hottest days, cowboys sought shade when they could, under trees, beside wagons, near rocky outcroppings. Hats tipped low, eyes closed for a moment. Flies buzzed. Cattle shifted in the distance. These short rests were some of the calmest moments of the day. Cowboys rarely worked alone. Most traveled in small crews. Long drives built strong bonds, not through dramatic moments, but through shared routine. There was teasing, nicknames, gentle humor that softened hard work. Gear was loaned, clothing mended, coffee or tobacco shared without question. Small kindnesses mattered. They made the work feel human. Sometimes neighboring riders crossed paths. A brief stop, a short exchange of news. Nothing rushed, nothing tense. Often a dog trotted nearby, helping with cattle or simply keeping close. That presence added warmth, a quiet reminder of home even while traveling far from it. Not every hour was filled with movement. During slower stretches, hands found quiet ways to pass time. Some cowboys whittled wood, small figures, simple carvings. Others worked leather, oiling saddles, stitching straps, checking every buckle and loop. Patient work, hands busy, mind calm. Some carried books or newspapers. Reading offered escape, not from danger, but from distance and repetition. Even those who didn't read often hummed. Familiar tunes, the same melodies repeated again and again. Music didn't need an audience. It didn't need perfection. It simply filled the quiet. As the sun lowered, camp came alive again. The chuck wagon became the center of warmth. Beneath it hung the possum belly, a sling holding firewood and supplies. At day's end, dry fuel was pulled free and a steady fire was built. Coffee simmered, often Arbuckle's Ariosa, its rich smell drifting through camp. Sometimes there was candy, a small reward from the package. Sourdough biscuits baked in Dutch ovens. The starter cared for like a living thing. That warm, yeasty smell made the wide open land feel smaller, closer. Meals were simple. Beans, biscuits, coffee, but they were filling and comforting. As darkness settled, voices lowered. Stories were shared. Harmonicas played softly. Songs sung without hurry. Some songs were meant for the cattle. Slow, repetitive. They kept the herd calm at night. They turned the prairie into an open-air lullaby. Night herding meant long, slow circles. Moonlight, wind and grass. Cattle breathing and shifting. Far from towns, the sky felt endless. Stars crowded the darkness. Planets shone clearly. The Milky Way stretched wide overhead. When it was time to sleep, bedrolls were spread. Some scraped shallow hip holes in the dirt. Small acts of care after long days in the saddle. Saddles became pillows. Suggins layered for warmth. Hats pulled low. Eyes closed. The land breathed. Life followed the seasons. Spring brought roundups. Summer brought long drives. Autumn slowed things slightly. Winter quieted everything. Cold months meant feeding hay, breaking ice, repairing equipment, steady work, methodical, boots molded to feet, saddles softened with use. Familiar gear carried continuity, a sense of home that traveled wherever the rider went. Most days were ordinary, and those ordinary days were what truly shaped cowboy life. Not gunfights, not legends, but patience, routine, quiet care. At night, everything came together. The possum belly gave up dry wood. Coffee bubbled softly. Biscuits rose in the heat. Cowboys settled into bedrolls. Hip holes smoothed. Suggins pulled close. Fire crackled. Voices faded. Cattle breathed in the distance. In that small island of warmth, surrounded by darkness and open land, the West felt less like a legend and more like a place where people simply lived. Quietly, carefully, together,